the 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
Now entering the game for Philly Pressbox Radio, Bill Furman and Jim Chet Chesko.
It's Wednesday, April 26, 2023. Welcome to the Philly Pressbox Radio Roundtable, brought to you by the Irish Rover Station House in Langhorne, PA. Allstate Insurance in Westchester, PA. Cavs, Philly Tailgates, and the Edge of Philly Sports Network. I'm Bill Furman. I'll be your host tonight, along with my partner, Jim Chet Chesko. Hey, Chet, the Sixers swept through the Nets. Now they await what looks like the Boston Celtics. We'll find out. The Phillies have won 6 of 9. Hopefully hitting season is here. But the big story this week is the NFL draft and what the Eagles will do with the number 10 pick. As always, plenty to talk about.
Yes, sir, Bill. 3 days that'll be, pretty important to all 32 NFL teams and their fans. And Eagles fans will watch round 1 in particular to see what Howie does with picks number 10 and 30. Always a fun few days, Bill, that gives fans plenty to talk about, not just during the draft, but for the next several weeks. So gonna be fun.
Absolutely. Well, I'm not a crazy draftnik guy like a lot of people, but they've made it into such a production. It has kind of made it a little bit fun to watch, but we'll see. I prefer when they're actually in pads and throwing the ball around a little bit. Yeah,
we all do. So, but hey, this is what it is.
That's right. Well, hey, we got a couple great guests tonight with our longtime pal, Mark Eckel, making his return to talk draft, and a first-time visitor, USA Today Sixers Wire beat writer, KY CARLIN. He'll be joining us to talk about Joel Embiid and the Sixers.
Looking forward, Bill, to our first ever chat with KY to talk all things Sixers. He's a good pal, by the way, of the Inquirer's Keith Pompey. I think that's a good thing. We'll find out. And as for Mark Eckel, well, we have a slew of questions to cram into our 20 minutes with Mark. So how about we get it going, Bill?
Yeah, let's get to it. But, hey, I want to ask you quickly about KY. He's not a Giants fan, I hope.
I hope not. That's one of my questions for him.
All right, let's get to it. Let's welcome Mark Eckel back to Philly Pressbox Radio. Mark, welcome.
Thanks, Bill. How you doing, Chet?
Pretty good, Mark. Hey, before we talk Eagles and the draft, since you write pieces for the Green Bay Packers these days, what is your take on the big trade of Aaron Rodgers? It finally happened. Rodgers going to the Jets. Who won the trade, and what does this mean for both of those franchises?
Well, I don't think trades are won. I mean, people always say, who won the trade? The Packers did better than they should have. So if you want to look at it from there, but if Rodgers takes the Jets to the Super Bowl, then the Jets did pretty darn good, right? So let's see how it plays out there. Rodgers wasn't coming back to Green Bay. I mean, they made it clear it was time to move on to Jordan Love, just as it was time to move on to Aaron Rodgers 15 years ago. And it is kind of ironic that he gets traded to the same team that Brett Favre got traded to. But the Packers, they made out pretty well in that they got a second-round pick this year, a good second-round pick, number 42 overall. They flip-flop 13 and 15, which it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but apparently that's worth a third-round pick. If by looking at the draft charts, it's worth like a low third-round pick. And then next year they get probably the Jets' first-round pick. It's a second-round pick, but as long as Rodgers plays 65% of their plays, which unless he gets hurt, if he and as I've said to people, if he doesn't play 65% of the plays, that means Zach Wilson's back in there for the Jets. Well, then that's going to be a really good second-round pick. It's going to be like 34 or something, right? Because if they have to play him again, the Jets are going to be really bad. So Packers came away in pretty good shape for giving up a 39-year-old quarterback, and they got rid of his contract.
Right.
Which they have some dead cap money this year, but they're free and clear next year of all the money that he was supposed to make. So from that standpoint, it was good for Green Bay. But again, the Jets were desperate for a quarterback. They put all their emphasis on him. They did talk to Derek Carr, but nothing came of it, and they didn't look anywhere else. So let's see what I mean. Like I said, I think the Packers did well for what all things being equal. They got rid of a guy. They got rid of his money. But if he does well with the Jets, we'll see what happens.
I like it for Green Bay. I think Green Bay did really well, and like you said, he wasn't coming back.
Jordan
he wasn't coming back.
Better than people think. Jordan Love's pretty good.
Yeah,
I believe that. I mean, this is gonna. I mean, I'm talking to you guys up in Philly. You know, Love was in the same draft as Jalen Hurts, 2020 draft, and this is a good lead into the draft. There wasn't one person, including the Eagles, and there wasn't one person, scout that I talked to, the magazines that come out, the Mel Kipers, nobody had Hurts ahead of Love. Nobody. Love was considered better. Now I'm not saying he's better than Hurts by no means. Right. Hurts has overachieved his draft status as a second round pick. Obviously, if that draft was held again, that draft was held tomorrow, Hurts would go very early, obviously. But I'm just saying, so Love, for people to think Love was better than Hurts, Love is pretty good.
Go, Chet.
Let's talk about the draft. All right. As I put up the round one draft order, we talked before we went live about quarterbacks. How many quarterbacks do you see going in the first 10, let's say? 2.
Maybe 3. Right. Maybe 3. Well, it depends. There's always trades, right? Teams are always going to make trades up and down and stuff. Bryce Young's going number 1. He's going to Carolina number 1. That's almost a lock. And that's the right pick. He's the best quarterback. He is small. There's no doubt about that. He's under 6 feet, and he's just a shade over 200 pounds. That's small for a quarterback, but he's good. He's tough. He has a good arm. He knows how to win, obviously. So that's the right pick. Of the other ones, it sounds like Will Levis is going to go to the Colts at 4. I don't think Houston's going to take him at 2. That's still a possibility, maybe. He's a very raw, developmental type quarterback as far as I'm concerned. Could he turn out to be good? Yeah, but he's not ready to play now. Anthony Richardson, Bill, you probably know more about him than any of us. I saw Florida play a couple times. He's an athlete. There's no doubt about it, but I don't think he's a good passer.
He's got a tremendous arm. Tremendous arm strength and tremendous arm, but he's raw. He's more raw than Levis even. Okay,
because he's not real accurate. The one game I saw him at, I think he started like 1 for 11 or something.
Yes.
But there is ability, there's talent there. So again, a project, the guy that you're going to have to coach up and do things. And then C.J. Stroud, everyone liked him until they did that test, and the same test that Bryce Young got a 98 on, Stroud got an 18. So I think that's kind of scared people a little bit that maybe you don't have all the cards in the deck. Maybe your son wanted to get 18 is not very good.
It's not good.
And that test, it's called the C2 or something. It's relatively new, but no quarterback who's ever scored low on the test has ever done well. So I think that has some people scared.
Yeah. Well, you said Bryce Young with number 1. I think we all agree to that. What if you're Houston at 2, and Houston has another pick, I believe it's 12, right? Something like that. 12. Do you pick a quarterback there at 2, or do you go get a Will Anderson guy that is probably he's my favorite player in the draft?
Well, yeah, Will Anderson's the best player in the draft. That's the one consensus in this draft is that he's the best player. I would take Will Anderson. I mean, Houston needs a pass rush as well as a quarterback. I think if Bryce Young, if Carolina would have gone somewhere else, or if the Bears had kept that pick and if they took Will Anderson, I think Houston would have taken Bryce Young. But I don't think Houston is in love with Stroud or Richardson or Levis to take them at 2. Now, with that said, they have 12, like you said. So I think they take Will Anderson at 2, the best player in the draft. They sit at 12. They wait and see. Look how things happen. Maybe they move up a couple spots and get one of the quarterbacks. Maybe they sit at 12 and one falls to them. They could move with. A matter of fact, I'm sure we'll get to the Eagles. The Eagles pick. Chet, you said the Eagles pick 10 and 30.
Yes.
I'll bet you one of your favorite beers that they don't pick 10 and 30.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Oh no, he's going to move up.
Might not pick 10 or 30.
Right. Exactly. They might move it down and up and out, and who knows what they're going to do. But I don't think they'll pick. I don't think when the draft's over that they will have the 10th pick and the 30th pick.
Yeah, this guy, Howie Roseman, loves to make draft day trades, so we'll see what he does. A lot of talk up here in the Philadelphia area about either Jalen Carter falling to number 10, would the Eagles take him, and the possibility of the Eagles taking Bijan Robinson. They haven't taken a running back in the first round since, what, Keith Byers in 86?
1986.
So either of those guys perhaps going to end up as an Eagle?
No, I don't think so. Let's start one at a time. Carter, I don't think I think he goes 5 to Seattle. They would have to trade up. Now all right, here's something that could happen. If Houston does not take Will Anderson, say for some reason they decide they want they do want one of the quarterbacks at 2, or they, I don't know, they go somewhere else. I mean, remember, Houston last year really screwed up. They took a cornerback, the kid from LSU, Stingley, instead of Sauce Gardner, which is going to go down as one of the dumbest decisions in draft history. Sauce Gardner was the rookie of the year. He was probably arguably the best corner in football last year. He's that good.
Right up there with the Jalen Reagor, Justin Jefferson deal, huh?
That was later. That was much later. That wasn't 3 and 4. You know what I'm saying?
Still dumb, though.
It was still bad. But yeah, anyway. So if Houston passes on Anderson, now they got the Cardinals sitting there at 3. The Cardinals have more than made it clear that they want to move out of 3. They would love to get more. I mean, and I don't blame them. They have a lot of holes to fill. They can get. I don't know. I looked it up. If 10 and 30, if the Eagles were to give the Cardinals 10 and 30, that's not quite enough to get to number 3. So they might have to throw in a pick next year. So I don't think the Eagles want to give up too many more picks this year because they don't have many mid-round picks. If they did want to move up for Anderson or even Carter, let's say Anderson does go 2, and the Cardinals are sitting there at 3, and the Eagles really want Carter. Although I don't. Carter makes a lot of sense as a player for the Eagles. He's a Georgia guy. They love Georgia guys. They have 2 from last year on the team. Him and Davis would be back together again. But there is that off the field stuff, and I don't know what I'm sure. Listen, I will say this about the Eagles: their security department, or whatever they call it now, headed by Dominic, is very good. They will determine whether or not Jalen Carter is worth taking and worth moving up for. And if he comes back with the report that, hey, we don't want this kind of guy, then their Eagles aren't going to take him. And I'm sure there are some teams that have done their homework and have come away with that feeling that now we just don't want this guy on our team. But from a strictly football standpoint, he would be a perfect fit in Philadelphia. Now, Bijan Robinson, they're not. I know apparently, and I'm not up there, but I still talk to some people up there. That's the big story. Every day on the radio, they talk about Bijan Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they take a running back. Listen, if they took him, I wouldn't criticize the pick because he's a very good player. I just don't think you take a running back at 10.
Hey, Mark, with the offseason taking fold like it did, losing a whole bunch of players and signing a bunch of guys to 1-year contracts, more veteran-type players, what are the chances they trade one or both of these picks, trade back in order to get more players, more good players under rookie contracts to grow this team? Because Fletcher Cox is back, Brandon Graham is back, Kelsey's back, all on 1-year deals.
They could, yeah, like I'm saying, I don't think at 10, I wouldn't go too far back because, listen, the Eagles are only the 4th team in history to go to a Super Bowl and then pick in the top 10 in the next draft. The last one was, I believe, New England. Washington had it one time, and San Francisco had it one time. So that's impressive. If you're the Eagles, you don't plan on picking 10 very often, right? So, and especially, again, I think they won't make that move until they're on the clock. Because if the quarterbacks do go early, if 4 quarterbacks go in the first 9 picks, there's going to be a pretty good player there for the Eagles at 10, and I think they'll just take them. Where I think they move out, I don't think. And like I said, they might, if they want to move up for a guy, they have the ammunition to do that as well, using picks next, whatever they want to do. They could move back a couple spots if they feel the guy they really like is gone, and now they have 2 or 3 guys that are all about equally graded out equally. Maybe they move down to 12 or 13, 14, but not too far, because you don't want to go too far down and then not get anybody that you really want. Because I think once you hit like 15, 16, there's no difference in that guy than the guy you're getting like maybe at 40. It's really that much of a parity draft. Now at 30, I think they definitely will trade out of that. They did that a couple years ago, more than a couple now. But when they had I think it was a year that they won the Super Bowl. They were picking 32, and I believe they traded it to Baltimore, and ended up getting like a second and a third and something the following year. I could see that happening again as well. If a team, some team that doesn't have a first round pick maybe wants to jump in, or a team wants to jump back in, they get a player that they really like that fell. But I can tell you, go ahead. I'll let you ask me something next.
Who are some of the guys that are definitely going to go in the top 10? As I put up the draft list again, who do you see going where for sure?
Well, yeah, Young, I think, like I said, 1. I think Anderson will go 2, 3, somewhere there. Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech, pass rusher. He should probably go top 5. Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback from Oregon, I think is a top 10 pick. Let me look at my list here. And then after that, then you don't know. Paris Johnson, the big tackle from Ohio State, he's a guy the Eagles may have interest in. I don't think he makes it to him at 10. And then you got the guys that could be there for you. And I'm going to give you 3 guys that I think the Eagles will be very interested in if they make it at 10. One number 1 on their list, I think, is Peter Skoronski. Look at you, put him right up there. Almost like you knew I was going to say that. The big offensive lineman from Northwestern. From the people that I've talked to, scouts in the league, he's the only ready to play offensive lineman in this draft. He can come in and start for you tomorrow. The rest of them are kind of project. Paris Johnson, maybe, but people weren't 100% sure on it. Skoronski can come in and play. And for the Eagles, he would be a perfect fit in that he can come in and play guard tomorrow. And the Eagles lost Isaac Samala, right? So yep. instead of having to move Cam Jurgens over, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but they don't have to do that. You plug him in right at guard, and then he stays at guard until Lane Johnson decides it's time, which could be. Who knows? I don't know what Lane. He's had some injuries through his thing. But if he decides, 1-2 more years, then you move Skoronski out to right tackle, and you're good to go. So that I think the Eagles really like him. And I think he would be their pick at 10 if he's there. He's got to get by the Bears at 9, who, Northwestern kid, Chicago, the whole thing. That's the one thing there. 2 other guys that I'm going to give you. One is Miles Murphy, edge rusher from Clemson. Look at you.
On the ball, Mark.
I don't know who's doing this, but you're good. Because this was not rehearsed. Let me tell you, I didn't say any of this. I didn't tell you. This guy reminds me a lot of Brandon Graham.
I've heard that. Yep. Kind
of built like him, kind of plays like him. He can, he was more of a stand-up rusher. He can put his hand on. He can do either. He can put his hand on the ground. In a 4-3, he'd probably put his hand on the ground like Graham does. And his personality is, Brandon Graham's a big personality, right? Everybody knows that. Well, this kid's the same way. He's very intelligent, very well spoken. I had a scout tell me, yeah, when we interviewed him, I had to look it up. I wasn't sure if he went to Clemson or Harvard. So,
wow.
He's the kind of guy I think the Eagles will like that. The Eagles, like some teams, don't like big personalities, and they stay away from that kind of. I think the Eagles kind of embrace that a little bit, and like I'm saying, and if he is and I don't like comparing players to players because it's not always fair, but if he is a lot like Brandon Graham, then why not learn under Brandon Graham for a year? And then eventually take over for him. So that's another guy that I think.
And the last one, Mark, who you got?
Lucas Van Ness from Iowa.
Okay.
No picture.
I don't have a picture. I'm sorry.
Surprised you on that.
I only do so much here, pal.
Hey,
Mark, one more from you.
First two, I just assumed.
Hey, Mark, one that the locals are interested in, Joey Porter. Where do you see him going? Is there a possibility he's there at 10? And he's a 10 guy.
He'll be there at 10. I don't think the Eagles are going to take a corner. I thought they may have until they re-signed Bradbury and redid Slay. The Eagles haven't taken a defensive back. You talk about running back. They haven't taken one since '86 in the first round. They haven't taken a corner or any defensive back in the first round since 2002. And they've only taken 2 since 1990. And they've never taken one ever in the history of the draft, not going back to whatever year the draft started, 1930-something. The Eagles have never taken a defensive back with a top 20 pick.
Wow.
So they go when the Eagles have a high pick. If they're not taking a quarterback, it's usually a lineman, offense or defense. So that's why I gave you an offensive lineman and 2 defensive linemen. That's just what they do, and it's worked. I mean, that's why they have a good offensive line. That's why they have a good defensive line, because they spend, high draft picks on them.
Absolutely.
Hey, Mark, we're running out of time, and I want to do a quick 3 and out with you. Okay. But before that, I got to tell you, I did not know this until Monday night. And I apologize, my friend. I checked out your podcast with Ken Dunnick. I did not know you had triple bypass surgery in December. Yeah, so glad you came through that okay, and that you're doing everything good now.
Oh, I feel great. When people ask me how do you feel, I never felt bad. I had a massive heart attack and had triple bypass. I thought I had heartburn. I was never in bad pain. When I went to the hospital that night, thank God I did. My doctor told me later, if I hadn't gone to the ER, it was a Wednesday night. If I hadn't gone that night and waited to the next morning, I might not have been able to wait the next morning.
Wow.
But I felt like indigestion, heartburn, but it wouldn't go away. I took my Protonix pill and Tums and Pepto-Bismol and everything else, and it just wouldn't go away. But yeah, it was scary. But I had my 4-month checkup, and they did an echocardiogram, and the nurses were like, "Wow, if we didn't know better, we would look at this. We would never known you even had a heart attack."
Good.
So that's thanks for asking.
Yeah.
And then Ken had one right after me.
I know. Yeah, Ken Dunnick had one a few weeks later. Yep.
Like it was contagious, I guess. I don't know.
Well, hey, Mark, we're passing, as Chet said, we're passing on the Fast Five. He wants to go 3 and out with you tonight. You good to go?
Let's go.
All right. Number 1, Mark, as we speak before the 2023 draft, who are the best 3 teams in the NFC in order?
Best in NFC?
Yes.
Philadelphia Eagles, San Francisco 49ers, Dallas Cowboys.
All right. Number 2, in the wake of that bypass surgery I mentioned, what's the biggest change you've had to make in your lifestyle?
I'm working out more than I ever have, probably since high school.
Good for you.
I had to do this cardio rehab, and now I do it. Even though I finished what I had to do, but I'm working out at the gym, at the hospital gym, three days a week, and then I work out 2 days a week on my own. And I watch what I eat more now.
Good deal. Well, you're doing well, Mark, and hopefully you'll be around for a long, long, long time. But hey, we are men of a certain age now. So number 3, final one, what are 1 or 2 things on your bucket list that you can share with us?
Oh, wow. I don't really have one. All right. I'll keep it sports oriented. I've been to a lot of sporting events, obviously, work-wise, Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Finals, NBA Finals, World Series, all kind of stuff. I want to go to a Kentucky Derby, because I'm as big a horse racing fan as I am, and I've been to a Preakness and a Belmont, but I've never been to the Derby. So that's number 1. And then I was just talking about this the other day, because I go to a lot of Coastal Carolina baseball games. I'm going to go to the College World Series in Omaha.
Yeah, me too.
So that's 2 sports bucket list things, I guess.
There you go.
I don't want to tell you some things on, I don't want people to know too much about me.
Gotcha.
Well, hey, Mark, we are out of time. We could do this for probably 2 hours, but hey, we appreciate it as always. You taking the time to come with us. Stay healthy, keep working out, keep exercising.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Take care.
All
right, Chad. Good stuff as always from Mark. And hey, speaking of good stuff, spring is here, so it's time for you to save some money with Allstate's pay-as-you-go auto insurance.
Yeah, that's right, Bill. Allstate's pay-as-you-go auto insurance puts you in control. You only pay for the miles you drive. With the same full coverage that a traditional policy offers, pay-per-mile insurance gives customers greater control of their insurance costs. See how much you can save with pay-per-mile car insurance by calling your local agent. In Westchester, Pennsylvania, that is Dave Lavoie. Call Dave at 610-430-0700. Once again, 610-430-0700. Start to save more now that you maybe are driving less.
There you go. Hey, Chet, while we're at it, what's going on over at the Irish Rover Station House this week? You been over there?
I was there last week, as a matter of fact, and there's always something good going on there. They have Quizzo every Wednesday evening. And check this out. Dinner specials and killer burgers are always something to consider. The killer burgers on Thursdays, and then dinner specials Friday through Sunday. That Tuscan chicken is calling out to me, I think. And then not only is next Friday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, it is also when the Rover will officially open its outdoor patio for the season. It was warmer last week, and so the patio was actually open. I was out there for a little while. You may have seen a picture. But they will have food specials plus Corona and margarita specials. And then on Saturday the 6th, oh, Mark should be there. It is Derby Saturday. Yeah, Kentucky Derby Day, featuring drink specials like a Rover Derby cocktail. Of course, there's always 24 beers on tap and a great bunch of beer tenders and wait staff for the Irish Rover. The Irish Rover Station House is on Bellevue Avenue in Langhorne, and you can get all the details on their website, irishroverstationhouse.com.
Hi, football fans. This is Merrill Reese, and you're listening to Bill and Chet on Philly Pressbox Radio. It's good!
Hey, Bill, I got to tell you something.
Go ahead.
Today is National Pretzel Day, as you can see. One free pretzel from Philly Pretzel Factory. Some other places were doing that as well. I'm a little ticked off. I had to go over to the Freehold area for something this morning, and so I didn't get to go to the Philly Pretzel by us, but I found out there was allegedly a Wetzel's Pretzels in the Freehold area, and I heard great things about Wetzel's Pretzels. So I put that in my GPS, went there. It said, "You have arrived at your destination." It was a friggin' bank. They had no pretzels at this bank. There was no Wetzel's Pretzels. I did not get my free pretzel for National Pretzel Day.
You still have time, though. You still have time after the show, no?
I got to get home, and I'll tell you about that later. That's a whole other thing. But no pretzels for me. But what are you going to do next year?
Hey, John Roberts made a comment here. I'm going to throw it up here and see if my memory serves me right. Leroy Keys, 1969 DB punt returner. I believe, John, we could check this out.
He was drafted as a
running back. I believe he was drafted as a running back.
Yes, he was a running back
because he played both. Well, he played both at Purdue, but they lost O.J. Simpson with the first pick.
Yeah,
and got Leroy Keys as a running back, and then became a DB. I believe that is
correct. A lot of Eagles fans were ticked off about that whole season because the Eagles won 2 games late in the season that cost them a shot at O.J. Simpson. Boy, he would have been killer in that offense, Bill.
We'll just let that go. All right. Hey, the Sixers rolled through the Nets, sweeping them. We think the Celtics are next, but they had a meltdown last night that cost them a game. Extends it out till Monday at the best when the Sixers will play the Celtics, assuming that happens. Will it be with or without Joel Embiid? More rest can't hurt.
Well, we're going to talk to our guest about that as soon as he joins us, which should be within the next couple of minutes. But I was thrilled to watch the end of that Celtics-Hawks game last night because, A, I love to see the Celtics lose. B, it meant that the Sixers series with whomever won't start on Saturday. It will, in fact, start on Monday. Now, it'll likely be up in Boston, but if the Hawks complete this amazing comeback and win the series, then it would be in Philadelphia on Monday night, which means, Embiid would have 2 more days of rest. He does have a sprained knee, and, the more rest you can get for something like that, the better you're going to be. So I think Embiid will be there. The question is he going to be, 90%, 80%, or what?
Well, I think what we've learned about Joel and his many injuries is that when he comes back from them many injuries, he comes back and scores 35 points. So it's not like the injury is hurting his ability to score points any night.
Yeah, he's going to get his points. And, from what we've seen this year in the Celtics-Sixers games, the Celtics seem okay with letting Embiid get his points, but they try to shut down some of the other guys, which they've been successful at to an extent, especially Tyrese Maxey. So we're going to look for him to step things up, hopefully. Boy, if they play the Celtics, this is going to be a really interesting series for so many reasons. I mean, just the rivalry plus the Sixers' inability to get past the second round in so many seasons. So I can't wait to see what our guest has to say about that, Bill.
Well, that's right. So we're going to get to the bottom of all of it with our first-time guest, Philly Pressbox Radio, USA Today, Sixers beat writer, Sixers Wire, KY CARLIN. KY, welcome to Philly Pressbox Radio.
Hey, KY.
What's going on, guys? Thank you so much for having me on.
Pleasure to meet you, man. We scheduled you to be on with us to preview a Sixers-Celtics series, but the Atlanta Hawks last night said, hold on a minute. Fantastic come-from-behind win by the Hawks in Boston to force a Game 6 in Atlanta Thursday night. So 2 things from you. How much of a surprise was the Hawks extending the series, and what does this all mean for the Sixers?
Well, extremely surprising, especially considering the fact that they didn't have their second-best player, DeJounte Murray. Obviously, he was suspended for the game. So definitely shocking. But at the same time, it wasn't shocking just because Trae Young has proven time and time again that he can show up in big playoff moments. And he did it again on the road in Boston. It's a hell of a shot. As far as the Sixers are concerned, obviously this means Joel Embiid gets more rest. The big fella is able to get a couple more days, rest that knee injury. And now instead of this series with the Celtics starting on this upcoming Saturday, the semifinals will start Monday against either the Celtics or the Atlanta Hawks. Crazier things have happened.
How uncharacteristic was it to see the Boston meltdown that took place last night over the last handful of minutes of that game? That didn't look like the disciplined Celtics teams that we've been watching for the last handful of years.
Yeah, it was definitely a little strange. I mean, they've had a couple of instances this year where they've kind of just lost their edge or lost their focus, just a little bit. But for the most part, though, they have been, like you just mentioned, a very sharp, very when the game is in hand, normally they're not letting it go. I think they were up 13 with 6 minutes left. It was messed up, guys. I started writing my Sixers Celtics series preview, and I mean halfway through it, and Trae Young decides to bomb one from the logo, and I had to scrap it. Just had to completely scrap it. It was so messed up. I was very upset, and just what are you gonna do? But yeah, normally in that type of situation, you think the Celtics are going to close it out. So it was definitely strange that they weren't able to get the job done last night.
But you mentioned Joel Embiid's health, the sprained knee. Speaking of player health, what about James Harden? He is not totally healthy. How close is he to 100%? And what can we expect from him moving forward?
See, I'm not sure because he claims he's perfectly fine. But when you watch that series with Brooklyn and you realize he had a really good series in terms of just his numbers. I think he averaged 17, 8, and 7 or 17, 8, and 6, something like that. Those are really good numbers. But he shot, I think, 34% from the floor overall. At the rim, he only shot 24% on layups. And that is that kind of raises alarms a little bit. Even in the game 4, the clincher, I think he only shot 4 for 18. So it's just you can get away with that against the Brooklyn Nets. You're not going to get away with that against the Boston Celtics. It's not going to happen. So I think Harden's health is definitely going to be something that is going to be worth keeping an eye on, obviously, along with Joel's. As this series moves forward, he looks good in what I've seen after practice. Obviously, as the media, we're not allowed to see practice, but from what we've seen, the shooting drills and things like that after practice, he looks fine. He's been shooting the 3-ball well. I think he's around 42.6% from 3. I think he shot against Brooklyn. So obviously you'll take that. But his overall field goal percentage has got to go up, and obviously he's got to get to the free throw line more as well.
KY, if it turns out that Joel is not fully healthy or can't go, can the rest of this bunch pull this thing together and pull out a series?
Not against Boston. Not against Boston. I mean, I kind of don't really give the Sixers much of a shot against Boston, even if Joel was 100% healthy. I'm still taking the Celtics to win the series. But if Joel is going to be hobbled and he's going to be somewhere around 75 to 80%, then yeah, I give them no shot against Boston. Just because I think the Celtics are deeper. I think they're a more experienced bunch, obviously. Their core has been to the Eastern Conference Finals, I think, 4 times. They've been to an NBA Finals now once together as a group. This team has gone deep into the playoffs, and they understand what it takes to kind of win at this level. Meanwhile, the Sixers, the only 2 guys on the roster who's really been past round 2 are PJ Tucker and James Harden. So I'm not really sure, like what to really make of this group, especially when you go up against a team like the Celtics. I don't really give them much of a shot.
Hey, Kai, Bill and I were talking about this right before you jumped on with us. Tyrese Maxey, he's been, pretty great most of the season. He's certainly had his moments in the playoffs, but for whatever reason, he has not played well against the Celtics. Are we going to see anything different from him, assuming it is a Sixers-Celtics matchup?
See, there are a couple of – I was actually thinking about that, and there are a couple of different things that kind of crossed my mind with that. I mean, Maxey, during the regular season, averaged 10 points in the 4 games against Boston. I think he shot 21.4% from 3. I think his field goal percentage was like 35.4% overall. Like, those aren't Tyrese Maxey numbers.
Yeah.
A couple of things really crossed my mind. One of them was for two of those games, I think he was coming off the bench, right? And I think that was when he even mentioned that he was kind of going through some mental stuff. He went to go talk to his parents. He went to go talk to some people, try to get himself right again, which obviously he was able to down the stretch of the season and in round 1 against the Nets. And then another one was the last game, the one when Joel scored the 52. Tyrese did, he did get hit in the back. I think he said PJ Tucker it was like friendly fire, kind of hit him while they were going up for a rebound. So maybe that had something to do with the struggles. Another thing I thought about was the fact that Boston has so many perimeter defenders that they can throw at him, from Marcus Smart to Jaylen Brown to Jason Tatum to Derek White. Then you got their big men like Al Horford, Robert Williams III, both terrific defenders. So I'm curious to see how Tyrese kind of gets over that hump, like if they were to play the Celtics. I think for me it would have to happen game 1. If he doesn't have a good game 1, then I don't think it's going to be a good series.
Well, Kai, I ask this to every basketball guy that we have a girl, because we whether to the same question. Does Glenn Rivers have what it takes to manipulate this limited bench that he has and this starting group and actually win a series that's a big series?
I love how you called him Glenn.
There's only one Doc in Philly, and it ain't him.
That is fair. That is fair. Julius Erving. You know what I mean? He definitely owns the Doc name. I guess for me, listen, I think Rivers has done a phenomenal job. Well, I thought he did a phenomenal job last year, kind of navigating the Ben Simmons stuff and making sure that they were competitive, and then working James into things. This year, I think he's done a little bit better of a job of understanding that you can't have all bench lineups. you can't do it, especially in the playoffs. Yeah. I'm curious to see how he handles the bench, though, against if it is the Celtics, just because George Niang has had his struggles against the Celtics during the regular season as well. How many minutes are you going to give DeAnthony Melton? How much ball handling pressure are you going to put on Melton? Another one is Jalen McDaniels. How is he going to match up against a Jaylen Brown or a Jason Tatum or Grant Williams, even like any of those guys the Celtics can throw out there? And then, do you play Danuel House? Do you get a little more athletic and you throw House Jr. out there? So I'm curious to see how this all works out. Also, Paul Reed. Yeah. Paul Reed obviously had a terrific series against Brooklyn. I'm curious to see if he could do it against Boston. Because, listen, that Brooklyn team, give them credit, but to me, they kind of made the playoffs just because Katie and Kyrie set them up very, very nicely before they got traded. After the trades, I think the Nets were a team under 500. Give them credit. They were able to squeak into the playoffs as a 6th seed. But I think over the course of a season, that roster is probably a play-in team at best. So you're going from a team like the Nets to a big step up in competition from them to the Celtics.
Hey, I know his teammates love PJ Tucker, but do the Sixers need to get more out of him as the playoffs move along?
I think so, especially against Boston, because PJ is going to do everything, like all of the little things, to make sure the Sixers are in a position to succeed and in a position to win these games. And I thought that he did a really good job of making those types of plays against the Nets. Against the Celtics, though, he's got to knock down these corner threes. I think in game 4, or was it game 3? I think overall, though, the 2 games in Brooklyn, I remember sitting up there at Barclays Center. I think he made like 1 corner 3. Again, you can get away with that against Brooklyn. You're not going to get away with it against Boston. Like against the Celtics, like Philadelphia basically needs to kind of play near perfect basketball, especially on the road when you go into the TD Garden.
Another mystery on this team to me is Tobias Harris. He kind of was more of a star back in the day, and now he's the odd man out of the big three. Kind of seems to play his role. At times he steps up, scores a bunch of points, and plays some really good games. Is he just a guy on this team now, or does he have the ability to really make things happen?
See, Tobias Harris is unique, right? Because we're talking about a guy, you just mentioned it, Bill, that like he was a star. Now he's kind of been phased out of the big three. Now he's kind of a fourth option. He's a very expensive fourth option. But I don't think you're going to find a better fourth option than Tobias Harris. But he's going to be another one that's going to have a microscope on him because his round 2 production, whether it be last year against Miami, 2 years ago with Atlanta, his first playoff run with Toronto, against Toronto. I know everybody remembers that series. His numbers have just dipped considerably in the second round compared to his production in the first round. So his production in this first round against Brooklyn was terrific.
Yeah.
Like the Sixers will take that. Like if the Sixers get that, hand them the Larry O'Brien trophy because that's going to be a big difference like throughout the whole run. But Tobias has shown in the past that every time the playoffs flip to round 2, those numbers they like steeply decline. So I think he's going to be the X factor in this series for Philadelphia. If he's going to produce the way he did against the Nets, then the Sixers are going to have a very, very, very good chance at winning this series. But if not, then it's going to be deja vu all over again.
All right. Kai, I need to ask you about a fellow Sixers beat reporter. I've gotten the sense that you two are pretty tight, you and Keith Pompey. Keith's been on us, I think, 12 times over the last 6 years, essentially twice a year, and we love having him on. I think I remember you posting about him last fall on Facebook, calling him the gold standard. Has he been something of a mentor for you?
That's the OG. No,
yeah.
That is my OG. I'll say this: the amount of wisdom that I have learned from Keith Pompey and everything has been absolutely incredible. Honestly, it's like I can't even put into words how important it has been. I appreciate the guy so much. I can't even say like enough good things like about Keith. Like that guy has continued to he took me under his wing like immediately. We first met back in I think 2019. Actually, no, I want to say like 2016. Actually, when the Sixers, I went to Stockton University in South Jersey, and the Sixers came to Stockton for training camp while their facility was still being built in Camden. And I think I was a junior at the time. Or a senior, I think, and I met Keith that day. And he kind of like from that standpoint, really from that point, took me under his wing. And I mean, he's been the definition of a mentor to me ever since. Like I love the guy. There's no bad things I could ever say about him.
Okay, so the $1 million question: you are not a Giants fan?
No. No, but I will say this: I'm not an Eagles fan either. So
as long as you're not a Giants or a Cowboys fan, we're good.
I am from Michigan originally, so I am a Detroit Lions fan.
There you
go.
There you go. You're the one.
Allow that.
You're the one.
Yes, the one Lions fan outside of the state of Michigan.
Kai, it's prediction time. Before you go, you mentioned you think the Celtics will beat the Sixers. So who do you think's going to the NBA Finals this year?
Before the season started, I said Celtics Warriors. I thought that we would get a rematch of that. But considering the fact that the Warriors can't win on the road to save their life, I am probably going to take Boston. I still think Boston comes out of the East, especially when you look at how Milwaukee's struggling with the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
And just how Jimmy Butler has continued to once again take his game to another level in the playoffs. So I'll probably say Celtics out of the East. At this point, I am going to rock with the Phoenix Suns. I think Chris Paul, Devin Booker's playing out of his mind. He's another one. Him and Jimmy Butler, to me, have been the two best players in these playoffs. And when you combine Kevin Durant with Devin Booker and the savviness and the wisdom of Chris Paul, very good bench, very good role players. DeAndre Ayton's playing well. I like the Suns a lot. So I'd probably say Boston and Phoenix.
All right.
All right. Well, hey, Kai, before we let you go, let the viewers know where they can follow your work on all the different social medias you have going on and all that.
Well, I appreciate it. You guys can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, Kai_Carlin. That's KY_CARLIN. And you can always go to SixersWire.com and read all of my stuff over on there.
All right. Well, hey,
thanks, Kai. This was great.
Kai, we appreciate you joining us. Appreciate your time, and let's do it again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank
Take
you,
care.
man. All right, Chet. Good stuff. Let's give a shout out to all the shows over at the Edge of Philly Sports Network this week. Draft, more draft coming up with Edge of Philly over the weekend. Check it all out. Catch all the action at www.eopsports.com, as well as Edge of Philly Sports on the YouTube. You can also find our show on Philly Pressbox Radio YouTube channel. Help us out. Hit those subscribe, follow, like buttons, and as always, share with your family and friends. As you can see, let me get that banner out of the way for you right quick so you can see it all. There you go. Draft stuff. Chet, you're going to be part of that, right? I'm not part this year because I've been a little tied up with this job thing, but you're going to be part of the draft party.
Sunday at 4 p.m., they're doing a draft wrap-up show, the EOP guys, from the studio over there in Delco. So, I will be hanging with Big Al and whoever else is there, 4 o'clock on Sunday. We'll promote that more heavily this weekend, but they're going to be all over the draft from Thursday evening through Friday evening through all afternoon Saturday. So get your draft info from the guys at Edge of Philly Sports.
Yeah, and that's there's about 8 or 10 different guys that are participating in that, right? Yeah. So you won't just get Chet's lousy opinion about taking a running back or something like that. You get a little bit of everybody.
Speaking of which, I don't know who the Eagles are going to take. I don't know that they're going to stay at 10 or 30 as we discussed, but if they did end up with Bijan Robinson, I wouldn't be upset. I know it's conventional not to take a running back that high, but if he dropped a few spots and the Eagles, didn't make a pick at 10, I'd be fine with it. I
would too. And honestly, I think they're going to, if they stay where they are with this stuff, I think they're going to miss Miles Sanders. As you know, I've liked him. He's a 5-yard per carry for his career guy.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure Kenneth Gainwell is that guy. I'm just not sure they've got the horses to have replaced Sanders at this point. And maybe this is the guy. He can play, no doubt. And put him behind that offensive line. That line hasn't gotten any worse.
Yeah, it would certainly be exciting to have a Bijan Robinson. As for the offensive line, though, the one concern is they are getting older and they don't have as much depth as they used to, having lost Sayamalu. So even Andre Dillard's gone too. So I would not be shocked if they drafted an old lineman in the first round.
No, and I had 4 guys on my list that I wanted to talk to Mark about. He covered all 4 of them, probably before the Eagles pick, unless Skoronski is there. Paris Johnson, Jalen Carter, Will Anderson were my 4 that I always have a favorite that I like to pick for the draft. Will Anderson's my guy. He's a monster. And
he's going to go pretty high. So
yeah, he's going to go. He may go 2. There's a pretty good chance he could go 2. So we'll see how it goes. But we've seen Howie go through this many times. It's built from the front to the back, and O-line, D-line is where it's at. And as Mark said, that's worked pretty well for him.
It's going to be fun. I'll be watching for sure round 1 Thursday night.
All right. Well, hey, Chet, we got to talk about the Phillies. Nice series against the Rockies, winning 3 out of 4. They followed that up with a loss last night to open the series against the Mariners. That's not cool. Astros and Dodgers coming up, a 6-game road trip. You can only stay early for so long.
Yeah, well, I said after the first week, May 1st was kind of my cutoff to say it's early. You can't say that after May 1st because you're more than a month into the season. May 1st is Monday. The Phillies are still under 500. Had a chance to change that last night. Didn't happen. I think they're in a bit of a rain delay, or at least they were earlier this evening.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to actually start at 6:55 instead of 6:40. I don't know that happened or not, but yeah.
Yeah. and they have an afternoon game tomorrow. And then, as you mentioned, they got a tough road trip. They're going to Houston to play, the World Series champion Astros, and then out to LA to play the Dodgers. So that is a tough 6-game stretch right there. And then they come home for the Red Sox, who are only 500, but the Red Sox always bring a lot of fans to Citizens Bank Park and seem to give the Phillies some trouble. So not an easy next week and a half for the Phils. The big question, Bill, is will Bryce Harper be back? Because supposedly, if he gets clearance to head first slide, which I think they should just, say, no, you're not sliding head first. Right. He's going to be back in the lineup next week.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. It might be a little too early. I'm not happy that they're under 500 either, especially when you got a whole one. I think there's 5 of them in the starting lineup tonight hitting over 300, maybe 6, because Sosa's playing again. They don't necessarily need 3 innings in, they're losing 5-3.
Oh, man.
Thanks, Joe. They don't really have to have Harper in there right now. Why risk it this early? It's not even May 1st. So I'm for being sure he's in better shape. So
yeah, I would certainly be okay with them holding it off, but it's going to be up to the doctors. He's ready to go, I'm sure, as far in his mind. So yeah, don't rush him. Please don't rush him. They're going to need him later in the season, and it is still early, Bill, but next week, it's not going to be early. It's going to be May 3rd. When we talk again.
And since it's not going to be early next week, I have to throw this at you, Chet. How much fun is it right now to watch Bohm, Stott, and Marsh swing the bats? They are young. They are good. They are fun to watch, and they're hitting the ball all over the yard.
Yeah, 3 guys who were huge question marks last year. Marsh didn't start the season, of course, last year with the Phillies, but the other 2 guys, they weren't even being counted on at all at the very start of last season. Then they picked up Marsh, who was more of a project because people say, he's not really a hitter, but he's a great fielder. And now they're all stroking it. Bohm's hit a little bit of a slump lately, but those 3 are all fun to watch, and I hope they can continue it. And, Castellanos has still been hitting pretty well. They got to get JT going. And they got to get Turner going again because he's in a bit of a slump now. So if they can ever all get it going at the same time, they're going to score a whole lot of runs.
Yeah, and we have to throw this out there. That Nick Castellanos is swinging the bat, Chet, hitting, I believe, 310 going into tonight. Patience with Nick. You guys that are wanting to run him out of town, patience. Here he comes.
He's been a doubles machine, and he finally got his first couple of home runs, too, so. Go Nick.
And last night had 2 singles. It went the opposite way both times.
Yeah.
When you're swinging a good bat, you can hit that ball the opposite way, and then all of a sudden you're hitting it back that way with some power. Nick can hit. He'll be fine.
Yeah. So these next, like I said, 10 days or so are going to be very big for the Phillies. They got to show that they can compete with the likes of the Astros and Dodgers.
That's right. All right. Hey, Chet, tell us what's going on with Bob Cavanaugh and the gang at Cavs Philly Tailgates.
Well, let me tell you about Cavs. Bob Cavanaugh at Cavs Philly Tailgates has been cooking up a terrific catering business for more than 30 years now, known best for their tailgate parties, thus the name. They are just terrific. Cavs is a 3-time winner of Jack Daniel's Great American Tailgate Party Contest and a past winner of Philly Daily News Tailgate Award. Always with a great menu. So check these guys out. They've been featured on the Food Network. The next big event is a tailgate before the May 6th Phillies Red Sox game. That is a week from Saturday at Citizens Bank Park. And yeah, Cavs also does corporate events, graduation parties, you name it. Cavs Philly Tailgates is the way to go. If you need more info, email them at cavscatering@verizon.net or check the website phillytailgates.com. And yes, Cavs does the catering also for Philly sports trips. Vince and company have some amazing trips planned for the spring and summer. And as I put up the graphic here, they have a trip to Coors Field, Colorado, coming up in mid-May. You can go to Citi Field to see the Union in action. You can go out to Wrigley to see the Phillies out there. you can go to Pittsburgh, the best team in the National League right now, Bill, those Pittsburgh Pirates. Yeah, they are 16-8. Phillies will be out there the end of July. San Diego in September, and a big one this fall overseas. Philly sports trips going to the Ryder Cup in Rome and Florence, late September through early October. Get all of the details, phillysportstrips.com.
All right, good stuff. Well, hey, Chet, great guest tonight in Mark Eckel and KY CARLIN. Enjoyed having both of them, and great having Kai for the first time, for sure. Who's coming to Philly Pressbox Radio next week?
Well, by this time next week, Bill, the NFL draft will be long over, but there will be plenty to review and discuss, and we have just the guy to help us do that. It's BLG, Brandon Lee Gouton, the big boss at Bleeding Green Nation. We'll see what Brandon has to say about Howie's 2023 draft class. We will also be joined next week by Tim Kelly, Baseball Talk with Tim Kelly. He is all over the Phillies situation. Yes, Tim was originally scheduled for this week, but he graciously let us push him back a week in favor of our Sixers chat with KY CARLIN. But we will have Tim next week, Bill.
All right. Looking forward to that for sure. Well, hey, let's take another quick break. Thank our friends at the PPCC 118 Raz Room. They post great sports memorabilia on their Facebook page so people can take a chance of winning something they may not be able to afford or have access to. All items come with certificates of authenticity. They continue to run out great autographed memorabilia from all the Philly teams and more. Check out their Facebook page. Like it or follow it. It's PPCC 118 Raz Room. That's right, PPCC 118 Raz Room on Facebook.
Bill, I got one more thing for you.
Go ahead.
TV special tonight, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, celebrating the fact that this woman, Carol Burnett, is 90 years old today. Man, I loved watching Carol Burnett's show back in the late 60s and early to mid 70s. I think it was on Mondays initially, then Wednesdays, and then really found a home Saturday nights at 10 o'clock. That was before I was going out to hit the bars and stuff because I was too young. Carol Burnett, 90 years old, and she's got a great 2-hour special this evening. So I'm sure you watched Carol as a youngster in Delco, Bill.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. How many years was her show on? I want to think it was a while, right?
8 or 9.
8 or 9.
Maybe a little longer. It was 67 to 76, I believe. So about 9 years.
Very good. Well, I'll probably be watching the Phillies, but you can do a little summary for us on Philly Pressbox Radio Facebook page and give it a rating. How's that?
I have my DVR set because I'll be in transit right after the show, but I have the DVR set. I told my wife, I said, when I get home, we're going to watch the Carol Burnett thing together. So the Phillies are getting the night off in my house, Bill.
Whoa. Well,
yeah.
According to what Joe said, they must be taking the night off at Citizens Bank Park, too, down 5-3 in the third.
Still in it. It is early for this game, at least. So go Phils, come back.
That's right. You got it. We done? We ready to wrap it up?
A couple other things. The Oakland A's moving to Vegas. What is going on, Bill? And 5 NFL players suspended, 4 of them from those Detroit Lions. You knew this was going to happen with the NFL getting tight with all the betting companies, and now we're getting some players suspended. There was 1 or 2 last year, and now 5 already this spring. So,
yeah, and to tack on to that, they didn't make a lot of big news out of it, but there were a handful of people in the Lions organization, like office people, also got fired for betting. And as I told you, a person in an organization like that cannot even fill out a March Madness bracket.
Oh, wow.
Nothing. They can do nothing. It's they know it. Whether they decide they still want to do it or not, that's a whole different story.
And they frequently get caught. Wrap it up, Bill.
You got it. Let's thank tonight's special guests, Mark Eckel and KY CARLIN, our sponsors, the Irish Rover Station House, Cavs Philly Tailgates, PPCC 118 Raz Room, and Dave Lavoie of Allstate Insurance in Westchester, PA. For Jim Chet Chesko, this is Bill Furman. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll join Philly Pressbox Radio next Wednesday, May 3rd at 7 p.m. We might even have a birthday, Chet. You can see us live. It is our
9th anniversary next week. 9th anniversary we're celebrating.
Is it a birthday or an anniversary?
Whatever you want to call it. We're celebrating.
All right. 9th. Go figure.
9th birthday.
And show number 441 next week.
Yep.
You can see us live on Facebook. Listen to our website, phillypressboxradio.com. on Google Podcasts, as well as Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and all the others. So with that, high hopes, Philadelphia sports fans. Let's go Sixers.
Happy trails to you till we meet again.